Hi, guys. Welcome back to VIP Podcast with
Giovanna
and Patty. Just remember that this is an extension of Arise Global Changers, and we are just so excited that you are tuning in. Please remember to subscribe, and we are also putting this on Facebook, so don't forget to like on Facebook.
Yes.
So I'm super excited.
I'm always excited.
I know, we are. Oh my gosh, look, we're matching.
Oh, we are. And we're close.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Not
Always
far away.
super.
It's super.
I always get excited when I have a mic right here.
So cute.
So, yes, VIP, very important person.
Yes.
And VIP was birthed through pain, which sounds like what?
What?
But it does take
Like
a
birth?
very, very important person to be able to walk through the pain in life.
Right.
It takes a very important person to be able to look at life and think like, man, I've been hurt, I've been betrayed, I've been rejected, I've been abandoned. I feel like life just hates me. But it takes a very important person to be able to just press through. And as you press through and you press through that pain and you walk through it,
Right.
then at those moments we're able to find that there's victory even in
Right.
the most painful pain.
Yeah. It's this because when you're in it,
Yeah.
in that pain, you can't see anything but the pain, and you don't experience even like physical pain.
Right.
You know, I'm thinking about that right now. You know, when I'm in so much physical pain, there is nothing else that I can see. And so my thought is you're hyper focused on the pain, but it's when you come out through the other side,
Yes.
it's a whole different perspective. You're like, I allowed myself to experience the pain
Yes.
and walk through that process because it is a process. I know sometimes some of you are all going, oh, that P word again, like the process,
Boo.
right?
But that is why we have victory. That's why we have VIP podcast, because we
Right.
want others to be able to share their story, their victory,
Right.
in the things of life, whatever brought them pain.
Right.
So we are super excited. And the reason why we were saying we're super excited because we have one of our special friends.
Yes.
We call her our bestie now.
Bestie.
So we got Andrea. Woohoo! You're our VIP.
VIP.
You feel
Excited
special?
to be here. I do. Thank you for having me.
We're so honored that you said yes,
Yes.
to this, and thank you. Like really, that's really a privilege to have you here as our VIP
Thank you,
bestie.
bestie.
That was birthed out of pain too. Pain in my feet. We'll talk about that another day. Stay tuned for that. But so we ask for guests. We want VIP guests on here because you guys are very important people to us. But to share your story. And
Right.
so we wanted to bring you on here on podcast so that you would share your story, what you've been through. Victory in the pain is what you and I talked about, right?
Yes.
So
Well, thank you, ladies, for
Yes.
having me. It's an honor to be here. So pretty much, if I can go ahead and open up with the scripture,
Yes,
something that
yes.
the Lord gave me.
Yes, absolutely.
The Apostle Paul's praying here. He's praying a prayer for the church of Ephesus. And he says, I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the saints to grasp how wide, how long, and how high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to measure of all the fullness of God. I love this prayer. And I often pray this prayer, and I pray for your listeners today that they would know how deep, how wide, how long, how this love of God is.
Wow.
Right.
And to know that it's never ending.
That's
You know,
good.
ever since I was a young girl, I've had this drawing, this calling, this yearning to know this love that Apostle Paul prays for the people of Ephesus.
wow.
I was raised in a church. I was raised in a church, and I can remember often sitting in a wooden pew, just zoning out
Way
the
back then,
priests and the
Yeah.
people in the church. And I would often be looking at this cross that hung in the center of the church. And I remember thinking, why did this man die for me?
Wow.
Why did he love me so much that he would die for me? But not only did I was drawn to know this love, but I also wanted to be a good person. I wanted to live right because one day I wanted to when I die, meet Jesus.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in heaven, right? So that was my kind of thinking. And I remember my grandmother would often tell me, Mija, because even though I wanted to be a good kid, I was quite the opposite, right?
Yeah. That's how it works. Huh? In our minds, we're good.
Right. Yeah. And so my grandmother used to tell me, Mija, you need to be careful. You need to behave yourself. You need to be right, because every time you're not right and you don't behave, you're hanging Jesus back on that cross. You're crucifying him again. So you need to behave, mija. So I became so sin conscious, right? Because I loved God so much and I knew he loved me. I wanted to know this love, right? So I became so sin conscious.
Wow.
And then, of course, I was the opposite of be what I want, what I desire. So I carried a lot of shame and guilt and condemnation, right? And then I also have to tell you that I felt rejected a lot of the times growing up. I felt like, a lot of rejection. I have a great family. I love my parents, my sisters. But when I was young, I always felt like I was the oddball.
Yes. Or the black sheep of the family.
There you go. Like
didn't fit in. Like it's just something about me just doesn't fit in.
Right. And I believed the lie that my mother didn't like me.
Wow.
Because she had all these cute little stories about how everybody was born, because there's 3 girls and a boy, and then myself, my brother that I have. And then she would tell us these stories about when, each of us when she found out we were pregnant, she was pregnant with each one of us. Everybody a great little story, right? My older sister, great story. My 2 sisters in between, and then my brother, right? Great little stories of how, we planned you. We were so happy. But when it came to my story, it was like, you were a mistake. You weren't planned. Yeah. And you know what? And then all these cute stories of when she gave birth to each of my sisters. But when it came to me, and I almost died with you. Yeah. And you know what? You grew up, you were born and you had a fever, and I was sick. I almost died.
Everything was like very negative.
Right.
It wasn't a joyous time. Like every other pregnancy was like, yay, we're celebrating. But when it came to
it's the spirit of rejection right away. Because right away, and I feel like I could
relate to
not just empathize, but relate to it.
Right.
And so just feeling that, even just hearing you say that, which I really didn't know that part, is really familiar to me, And so, yes, when you're hearing it, and sometimes we don't realize, just as people, as we're sharing stories, we're like, think it's funny, or like, it's saying it nonchalant, like, there you go. I almost died with you, and you had a fever, but not realizing that at that moment the enemy is taking
that's it.
Yeah.
And that's what you're hearing.
Right.
Exactly.
He's helping you to interpret that situation.
And this was, you would hear this story even as a young little girl.
Right. Right. And so again, I always thought my mom doesn't like me. What is it? And I was always different. Like it was always like everybody had a first, middle name, and last name, all of my sisters, right? And my brother. But I asked her, why didn't you give me a middle name? Oh, we couldn't think of one. But that was, again, the enemy bringing lies to me. You're not good enough. You're not. And here I want this love and know this love of the Father. And yet I'm being treated like this with my family members, So it's like there was a lot of rejection. I believe my dad did love me. However, he was a business owner, so he was always working. So rejection again, like my dad didn't have time for me, right? So when my mother started going to a Christian church, right? And so she took us out of the Catholic church and started going to a Christian church. And my dad wasn't too pleased because, we were raised in the Catholic church. And however, my mom's like, no, I'm going to take him to church. We're going to go to church. And I guess he's seen a difference in all of us kids. We were so happy. We actually didn't fight them to go to church, fight my mom to go to church. And so I guess he decided, I'm going to check this out.
Yeah.
I'm going to find out what's going on. My girls and my wife, let's go. And so, he came to church and he gave his life to the Lord. He encountered the Lord the first day he went to church, and he surrendered his life to Jesus, experienced him. And then our whole dynamics in our household changed. And that summer I went to church camp, and the first day at church camp, they were doing an altar call the first evening, and I went up to the front, and I was just so overwhelmed by a sweet presence, a
Wow.
presence.
And how old were you about
I
this
was
time?
12.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
formative years.
Yes. And so I felt, I seen, while as he's leading us into a prayer, I seen a light flash on the side of my face. Like, and then I felt the power of God come over me, the Spirit of God come over me and in me. And I just remember locking at the knees and falling to the ground and thinking and accepting him as my Lord, my personal Lord and Savior. And I remember going back to the cabin that day thinking, wait a minute, God's not dead.
Yeah, wow.
He's not dead. Jesus is not dead on a cross.
Because you
Yeah.
already had that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's alive.
He's alive.
and
Yeah.
he's real. And I experienced him tonight. So of course, this drawing to know
Right.
him, this desire, this deep desire to know him became even stronger. And I moving fast forward to high school, still hungry for God, hungry for more of him. I would take my Bible everywhere I would go and read it any chance I got, you know, but I didn't have that foundation, like somebody to walk with me. I didn't know what I was reading. I just would read and read.
it.
I was so hungry. I just wanted to know God.
Right.
And I wanted to be good. I wanted to
Yeah.
make the right decisions. However, I was quite again the opposite in high school,
Yeah.
started getting into the wrong stuff, drinking, partying, you know, just making the wrong decisions. I remember coming home drunk one day and my dad was exercising me, thinking a demon was in me. And just like that's the way my high school
Yeah.
years went.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
I got into a relationship with my I want to say elementary, middle school sweetheart. He was a year younger than me, and he started. You know, he's obviously, I was a sophomore, so he was coming in as a
Yeah.
freshman, and I remember just thinking, "Oh my God, this guy's so cute," right? And told my friend about it, and she told him, and we were boyfriend and girlfriend the rest of high school. Like
that's it.
That's it. Yeah. Long story short, fell deeply in love with this man. He became my everything.
Wow.
Like I worshipped him. Like he was my everything. I would go to bed thinking about him, wake up thinking about him, always thinking about him, right? It was unhealthy. I think last night at dinner, I told you what this young relationship wasn't healthy
Right.
because he was my
Right.
everything.
Right.
You know,
They become our idol.
Right.
there you go.
And you don't realize it as a young teenager, we don't have verbiage. And we
Yeah,
don't really
right.
have people, especially in our culture, to share and tell us. They're just like, be good, be good, be good. And you're being bad. This is going to happen. But even like you said, he became your everything. And I remember even, you know, almost similar story, but I would describe it today like he was my choice of drug. He was my drug.
It's
Yeah.
It becomes like really you have this addictive behavior
And not
in this
knowing,
relationship
yeah,
because you don't know what it's called.
I thought I couldn't breathe without him. He was my everything. And I didn't even know really what love was because I always felt rejected, not wanted, not loved, abandonment issues, and just having someone there. And I wanted him to love me so bad. But I feel like I feel you that the description of he's my everything, it was like, I felt like he was in my veins. And even though it was toxic, even though it wasn't good for me, I
right.
kept going after it. So even at times where I was like, well, I've never done drugs that I can say, but did I? Because he was my choice of drug. I couldn't, as much as I wanted to be free and knew it was unhealthy and hurtful to me, I would keep running back to it. Did you find yourself like that when you're like, it was toxic, we were young, he was my everything, but I can't stop thinking about him.
Right. My whole world was a revolved different, you know, and if we were okay, then my day was okay. If we were in a bad place, you know, then my day was bad. And he was, again, my everything. So my mood depended on how we were,
Wow.
you know, and then of course, all drama, high school drama stuff, everything comes, you know, like when you're just mess. And shortly after out of high school, I had a child out of wedlock with him, and it was hard. Life was hard. My mom was like, "You're done. Like you need to move out. Like you want to do adult stuff, and you want to act like you're married. Then you need to go out and get a place and get married and take care of your baby now."
How old were you at this time?
At this time, I think I was 19 years old. And so that's what I did. I moved out. I moved in with him, and life was hard. Like. Trying to pay bills, trying to work. We're kids, don't even really know. Like I didn't know
You're kids.
Yeah,
I mean,
kids, and it's like, I I had my baby, and I remember thinking, I just want to make this right. I just want to be right again. That little girl that just wants to do things right, that wants to be good, that wants to make the right decisions in life. And somehow I went left. Like, God, I just want to do right. I want to be married. So we got married, and thought everything was going to be good. God is going to bless us. Now we're married,
Because you're doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Being good.
And so marriage was hard, and then raising our little boy was hard, and he was a monster. I mean, a baby. I love you, son. I love you, son. But he was not a normal child, and it was tough.
Yeah.
It was really tough to raise him, and we fought all the time, fought who's going to change diapers, fought who was going to make the bottles, and then working, and then trying to pay bills. And then I didn't know how to be a wife. So he wanted me to cook, and I'm all, cook? Iron your clothes? What? So that was just all hard. It was hard. And then one day my dad invited us to go to church on an Easter Sunday. And I thought, okay, yeah, we'll go to church.
Yeah, because it's familiar to you anyway, so you weren't opposed to it.
Yeah. And my husband at the time wasn't familiar with that, but he was like, yeah, I'll go. Yeah. So, and he gave his life to the Lord the day of service. At the end of the service, they did an altar call, and he gave his life to God. And so he went up there and everything. And he was crying, like, how to really encounter with God. So here I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is amazing. Now everything's going to be perfect. They're just going to be a happy family. We're going to serve the Lord. The Lord's going to bless me now because I'm doing right. Because we get into that thinking where if we do right, God will bless us, right? So I'm excited about what's going to happen. And he starts serving, and he starts going places with my dad, because my dad was, real involved. And he went to a Promise Keepers. Do you remember Promise Keepers?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Early
it was a big
90s.
crusade thing that they would have for men. Yeah, so I was all excited because I had heard good things about this, and my dad picked him up.
Yeah, because that Promise Keepers, real quick to say, because one thing what always stands it says, I love my wife. They would wear those shirts. The men would sit and wear the shirts that says, I love my wife.
I'm glad I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
You're just like, I know. You're just going to get, Lord, fix him. Fix him, Lord.
Fix him, Lord.
He's going to get fixed at Promise Keepers, and then everything's going to be
exactly, because that's the way, you think. And so I thought, everything's going to be great. So I couldn't wait till he got home. But I was just so excited about what he was going to tell me, what he shared, the encounter that he had, the man that he was going to come in glowing to be, right? And so he walks in, and I'm like, how did it go? What did the Lord show you? Was there people just giving their life? So, all that stuff. And he's like, yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah. And then he said, but you know what? You know something, Andrea? And I said, what? And he's like, the closer I get to knowing God and walking with God, the more I realize I don't want to be married to you anymore. I feel like you're not the person for me.
wow.
Yeah. So my happiness and joy went straight down. I mean, I was broken. And I could just remember thinking, what? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't understand. And then shortly after, I came home one day, and everything in my apartment was gone. Everything. Even the clock on the wall, the TV, everything.
Wow.
And I sat there, and I remember thinking, what am I going to do now? My family's broken. The love of my life is gone.
Yeah.
Bouncing up my baby up and down my knee. What are we going to do now? Right? I remember looking up at the ceiling that day, and it always brings me to tears. I could never talk about this part, because I remember pointing my finger at the Lord and saying, I'll never serve you. I will never serve you. You couldn't heal my marriage. There's nothing that you can do for me. And I turned my back on God that day. And the next 6 years, my life spun out of control.
Wow.
I went looking for love in all the wrong places. That love that I so desired, that love that I wanted, where you can only find from one place, I went looking for it. In anything, drugs, men, partying, clubs. And it was fun for a while. It felt that void for a while. And hang around the wrong crowd. And then one day I meet a man. And he he's not even really my type of man.
Right.
But I thought, he asked me out. I'm like, you know what? He likes to party. I heard he likes to party. So yeah, I'm cool with that. I like to party too. Yeah, I'll go out with you. The next 4 years I spent in an abusive relationship.
Wow.
Mentally, physically abusive relationship. I never thought that another human being could speak to somebody the way he spoke to me.
Right.
Wow.
Degraded me as a woman, as a mother, tore me apart. Stripped me of any little dignity that I had left in myself. Broke me. And then in the next breath say, I love you, but I love you.
Wow.
Yeah, I spent time in this relationship. And later on, I found out, like, in our relationship, I found out he was into, like, in his past, into witchcraft, into white witchcraft, he called it. But we know white witchcraft is the same as dark witchcraft or black witchcraft, or witchcraft is witchcraft.
Witchcraft.
Yeah.
And in turn, he opened the door to these demonic forces that would oppress him, would follow him, would torment him.
Wow.
And he would tell me stories of things that would attack him at night. And you know, he would cry telling me, because you could see the fear. So that's why he became such a alcoholic, because that's the only way he would be able to go to sleep at night.
And you guys lived together at this time?
No, we were just dating, but he was always at my house, at my little apartment that I had.
Yeah.
And he used to tell me this reoccurring dream that he would have, and it was a dream. It was a dream that he was in a city, a desolate city, and he was running through the streets, and the devil was chasing him with a big clock saying, "Your time's almost up."
Wow.
Yeah, and so with tears in his eyes, again, he would
and the
tell me
fear.
this reoccurring dream, right? Well, the minute that I opened myself up to him and gave him who I was, gave him, me, all of the spirits that he was
Dealing
with or oppressing him came right on me.
When you say you opened up to him, what do you mean? Like you became one with him?
Yes. So you do adult things.
Yeah.
Which
Which is really good to talk about, because sometimes we get afraid and we don't talk. And so in the church, we don't say really things that could happen. We'll say, oh, we're adults. We could do whatever we want. And we don't realize that God created this place of being intimate. Sometimes we don't even like to say the word sex,
Right.
Because,
Not in church.
and just who's listening. But to be honest with you, we have little 8-year-olds that are wondering what they are and wanting to experience it and not being educated of really why sex was to begin with, right?
Right.
And so now you find yourself, I don't know how old you're at this time, but you've already been super broken. You feel rejected. You were even, I feel, abandonment is even harder than rejection, because abandonment they made a choice to just leave you there.
yes.
Right.
So your husband that you
Yes.
had said, you're not good enough for me. Even though
Exactly.
I serve God and you serve God, you're not good enough. So what that even did to you then.
Exactly.
So fast forward, now you're with this person, and not even inside, I'm sure we know, but we have this place that is so voided that we want it to be filled and we don't.
Yeah.
And, we end up being with someone and not realizing that when you become one with someone, we don't just say, because it's a cute term to say when you have sex, you become one. Like, oh, that
Right,
sounds cute.
right,
We're
right,
one. And
right.
no, it really means that whatever they fight in their mind, all the demonic spirits, the spirits, they have legal rights to you. So now you're having to face with everything he faced.
Right.
Right. And I want to correct myself when I say adult things. I say adult married things.
Good. Oh, that's good. See,
Yeah. So I opened the door
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
to a man that wasn't even my husband.
Wow.
So I allowed all those things to come in that he had, and I became tormented, and I had anxiety, and I was afraid, and I would be asleep at night in my room, and things were running through my room, waking me up, and I was so afraid, and I was just like, wait a minute, what is this? Like, I was tormented, and then I became depressed and suicidal, and I'm just like, what is going on? I had no control. Well, I should say I was losing control of who I was.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror because I seen such a disgusting person looking at me back.
Wow.
I couldn't even brush my teeth and look at myself in the mirror. I was so disgusted and ashamed of what I had become. And I didn't have very much at this time. I lived in a little shack apartment. I mean, I was making ends meet, just trying to, I was a single mother, working as a waitress, and didn't have much. And this man was just always jealous, always angry about something, right? And I come home one day, and he broke into my apartment and trashed my place. With my groceries, just throwing all over my house, and opened my drinking waters and flooded my place and broke my radio. And I'm just like, what? You gotta be kidding me. And our time together was getting belligerent drunk, and then blown out fight at the end of the night.
Wow.
So
that was our relationship. And yet I could not break free.
Right.
Wow.
He had a hold on me. I couldn't break free. One day I tried. I remember thinking, I have to get out of this relationship. I can't deal with this anymore. And I remember driving to his house and going to take his stuff, because he would keep things at my house, and I was going to take all his stuff back to him. And I couldn't. When I got to his house, I didn't even get a chance to fully get out of the car. He rushed me.
Oh, wow.
And he attacked me in his front lawn. And I remember him grabbing my hair like a rag doll and just twirling me around the whole lawn. I mean, the next day I had a bald spot like in the center of my head. And I think the reason why I want to go into this story a little bit more and explain is because when you open the door to darkness, the enemy's ready to take you out. He's ready. And that's where I was such in a dark place. I was losing control of my life. And as he's spinning me around and he lets me go, finally takes a break. And I remember hearing a demonic voice saying, "Don't forget you have the knife."
Wow.
And I would carry a knife in my car because I remember when I was a waitress, I would work late, and I thought I need some kind of protection. Right?
Yeah.
So I threw a knife in my car, and I heard that voice.
Wow.
"Don't forget." So I ran to my car to go get it, and I turned around ready to attack him with it, and he got so scared he ran back inside and he locked himself up, right? I go home. The next day, there's a knock at my door, and it's a police officers. And they said, "You know what, Miss Valencia, did you go to so-and-so's house?"
Wow.
I said, "Yeah, I did. I just went to go to get," he saw, "Well, I went to go leave him his stuff. I broke up with him, and, it's over." He's like, "You're being arrested for assault with a deadly weapon." Handcuffed me. Thank God I had just taken my son to his dad's house because I was going to go to work, or else I would have been arrested in front of my son.
Wow. How old are you at this time?
I'm about 24.
Wow.
24 years old, 25. Yeah. So I get arrested, and I'm sitting in jail thinking, oh my God, how did I end up here?
Wow. So you got booked.
I got booked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I spent time in jail.
Wow.
Fresno County Jail. Yeah. And I'm sitting there thinking, God, why'd you do this to me?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. I'm sitting in a little room, and now I'm shackled.
Yeah.
I'm
now,
shackled.
Now, literally
shackled from my wrist, shackled from my feet, walking. Can you think about the shame, the guilt, the condemnation, the I was losing control of who I was,
Wow.
I remember, it's a process to go in jail. And so I was in one room, and I would go to the, by the time I got to the one of the rooms where I was going to spend
like the holding cell.
Well, actually I was already in.
Oh, you were in the holding
and I
cell.
remember just breaking breaking so bad, like I've never broke before, like, and thinking about my son and his face flashing before my eyes and thinking, how could I do this? How could I leave him without his mother? And I remember so broken and thinking, nobody can help me.
Right.
Nobody, mom and dad who always came when I was in trouble, they couldn't help me. I couldn't call mom and say, come get me. There's a process you got to follow, right? When you get, and I just remember God I look back in the time and knowing that God was there. God was with me. God kept me together, because I would have lost my mind. They would have had to taken me out in a straitjacket, had,
like 5150.
Right. And so I wish I could say that I got out of jail and everything was better and I left this guy and happily ever after, but because I learned my lesson or whatnot, but I didn't. I went right back with him.
Wow.
Do you want to say something?
No, we think, because we do, we think like that when we look at someone's life or even our own life. But I think a lot of times we look at someone and we're like, but they just went through this, like that should change them.
Right.
Or that should, something should shift in their life. And that's our perspective from this side. Like it should have done something.
Exactly. Yeah. I was one of those girls that said, why are you still with them? Why don't you leave them? And then I became one of those girls.
Right.
And I couldn't leave them. And yeah, I was so depressed, again, so suicidal. These voices started getting louder. I would have to hide knives around my house and at work, because I didn't know if I was going to grab one and stab myself. Like that's how these voices were bombarding me, and fear. And I was so scared. I used to have to call my mom, like, can you just come get me? Because I didn't know what I was going to do to myself,
Right.
And the only scripture I could hold on to, the only one that I could think of and fight with was, Lord, I know you will not give me more than what I could handle. I know you will not give me more than what. That's all. Even if it's like used in the right contents at that time, that's all I could fight with.
Wow,
and you know
so
what?
good.
I believed that He was just going to keep me together. But again, I could feel like getting darker and darker and losing myself. I couldn't get out of bed. Times I would look at these four walls. I lived in a tiny little shack, and I would look at these four walls, and I'm like, this is my life.
Wow.
This is my life, really?
Wow.
What kind of mother am I? What kind of human being am I? What kind of woman am I? So long story short, finally, one day my sister's having a party, and my boyfriend and I attend to the party, and he was always mad about something, never happy. And slapped me in front of the whole party. Everything stopped. It was like everybody got quiet. The radio turned off. Everybody's like looking. What just happened? I attacked him like a wild beast out of a cage. That they had to pry me off of him. Three and my sister, 3 guys and my sister had to pry me off of him because I was done being hurt.
Yeah.
Cops got involved. Long story short, I'm sitting in my sister's garage, getting high, getting drunk, getting high, getting drunk. And I remember thinking, I'm coming to the end of my life. Because number one, I'm either going to be in jail for the rest of my life because I'm going to kill this guy. Or he's going to kill me. And then my son's going to have to be raised.
Without him.
Yeah. And so I remember going home that day. I was back at my mom's house at this time because my apartment was just in bad shape, and I moved back home because it was safe to be at home. And my mom, one of the rules that my mom had is like, okay, you're gonna live in this house, then you're gonna go to church.
Didn't matter how old you were.
Didn't matter how. Yeah, and I'm about 25, 26 at this time, and yeah, it didn't matter how. So I go home that night. It was the Saturday that all this went down.
Yeah.
Went home, drank 2 big bottles of wine just so I could get the voices to stop and I could rest. But before I actually, was able to shut them off, I'm thinking again, well, how could I kill myself? What could I do? Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Like, my son's better off without his mom. Like, my mom will raise him. She'll be better with him. And, just so much shame. And again, I was losing control of who I was. So I was contemplating it again. So going back, I drank these bottles of wine just to shut the voices off, went to sleep that night. Next day, my mom was serious about what she said.
Yeah.
She's knocking at my door saying, get up. It's time to go to church. I'm like, is she really serious? I barely fell asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm shaking because I have so much
alcohol stuff,
and drugs
anxiety.
and whatever, drugs, everything in me. And I'm all, she's serious. Like, she's going to kick me out if I don't get up.
Yeah.
Got up. I was a hot mess. Pulled myself together. And it was crazy because it was like my son was already going to church with her, right?
Okay.
And my son comes in the room and he has this little grin on his face, like almost like he knew something was going to take place.
Yeah.
He grabbed my hand. He's all, "You're going to church, Mom." It was like he knew something was going to happen. So we took 2 separate cars because my sister was down from Vegas. She was living in Vegas at the time. She was down, and we took 2 separate cars and we went to church. And I could just remember thinking, I don't want to go to church. Like, I don't want to go to church. Can we stop and get a beer? Like, I'd rather get a beer. Like, let me just down a beer and then we'll go to church. And my sister's like, you know what, Andrea, you're so bad. Like, you need to stop already. Go to church. And I'm just sitting there like nervous and anxiety and just like clenching the seat. Yeah. Just like, oh, like, is he going to be done? Like, he needs to shut up. The pastor,
And
right?
pastors be preaching for
Yeah,
hours
he'd be preaching.
at a time.
Shut up.
And back in the days, they would go like 2-3 hours solid. Now it's like 25 minutes, go.
Yeah,
Like,
this guy was long. This pastor was long-winded. And so oh my God, I just remember thinking, he needs to shut up. I'm gonna get out here.
I gotta go drink a beer.
I gotta drink a beer. Yeah. Anyway, he said, I don't even know what he preached on. I can't even tell you what he preached on. I was just waiting for him to go out. And I just kept hearing these voices, right? These voices that oppressed me saying, oh, you don't have to get saved. Remember, you're already saved. Remember, you already got saved. You got saved. You don't need to go. You don't need to accept Jesus. You already accepted Jesus. Loud. And I'm all, and then I'm all like confused. I'm all hungover, like, just a hot mess. And so he's closing. I'm all, finally, this guy's closing. Starts praying or whatever. And then the worshipers begin to sing. And they just, the Holy Spirit is just in that place, in that church. And I'm just like, I just feel the presence. And I just begin the knot I was holding back. I was holding back this knot, trying to no, for crying, from breaking.
Right.
And before I knew it, I'm at the altar. Nobody even called.
No, they didn't even do an altar call. They want to go home and have lunch. They're like chicken wings.
Right. Holy Spirit invites me up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Brings me up. I don't even know how I got there from the seat to the altar, but I was at the altar. It was like Jesus said, no more. You're done. You're done. You're mine. And the pastor right away comes to me and starts to pray over me and starts to speak life. Starts to tell me that I'm beautiful, that I'm forgiven, that I love, that I'm washed, that I'm cleansed, and just speaking these words over life. And you have to remember, I haven't heard good stuff over me in a long time.
Right.
So I don't even know what that sounds like anymore. So I'm breaking and breaking and breaking and breaking. And then before you know it, I'm not hearing his voice anymore. It's like I'm detaching from my body and I'm going higher and higher into the spirit. And although I did not see Jesus, I knew I was staring at him face to face. There was such a brilliance of his light, brilliance of his manifestation of his glory. And I stared at him in the face, except I didn't see him, but I knew I was there.
You were face to face.
And it was like he was washing me. He was cleansing me, a deep washing, a deep cleansing. All that shame, all that guilt, all that condemnation, all the rejection, all the hurt, all the pain.
Right.
And making me brand new again. All the curse words, everything that was spoken over my life. And just within a blink of an eye. I like to say, he turned my world up from upside down to right side up, because that's what he did in a blink of an eye. He's that powerful. He's that special. He's that deep.
Right.
He's that wide.
Yeah.
He's that long. He's a love that's never ending.
Amen.
You'll always know deeper when you push deeper. You know more of who he is. It's never ending. And I was forever changed.
Wow.
He put me back into my body, and I was changed.
Wow.
That
I was
transformation.
changed. I
You were
wasn't
free.
I was free. I
Yeah.
wasn't the old Andrea anymore.
You were free and you found victory, and even in everything you went through, like through that pain, even at that moment. And like you said, God is so good and loving. Jesus, his love for us, there's no limits. There's no
Right.
boundaries.
Right.
He loves us without boundaries. So even the moment that you remembered so vividly that you were pointing at him and saying, I'll never follow you. And yet he's like, I'm going to love you even more.
Right.
I'm going to love you even deeper. And even being at that place of, and nobody knows until you have felt so bound by something,
Right.
whether it's a presence or a substance. Nobody knows until you have felt so bound, even when it's your own shame, your own guilt, your
yeah.
own inner critic, the torment in your mind. But once you have tasted freedom, once you have gotten a glimpse of what it feels like to be completely set free from all the rejection, all the hurt, nobody knows it. But I feel like I relate you because that constant voice that's speaking to you, even though you have said, well, I've said yes to Jesus. So why do I hear these voices?
Right.
But God is all I could know. Is that's what I hear all the time. But God. But God is not afraid, and he's still I am in every part of our lives. And in that young girl that felt like, man, I'd rather just go have a beer, or, and me wanting to joke would be like, man, I took 2 glasses of wine. I'm straight having communion with Jesus right now. Like I'm feeling it. Like, Lord, but really to get into that place that even when there's no altar call, even when you feel like you didn't even hear a word the pastor said, because honestly, you're like, just get it done. I need to get out of here.
Right.
God is still louder than all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's still louder, and he's still greater. He's saying, I will never give you more than you can bear.
Yes.
And today's a day, my daughter, I bring you back because you can't bear no more. It was
So
getting
good.
to that place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. And talk about victory in the pain. And just even to be able to sit here today and share with our listeners, for whoever it is. It could be a young girl in middle school.
Right.
The things that boy is the love of her life.
Right.
Right.
In high school.
Right.
Or to anyone that's listening to saying, I'm going beyond what I think. I'm betraying myself.
Yeah.
Because I said I would never, or I desire this, and now I'm going beyond that. And because we betray ourselves, because we do things that we say we would never, the enemy holds that. And when I say the enemy, I mean Satan is sitting there telling us, see, you're no good. You're no good. You really weren't wanted. You really shouldn't be born. And you shouldn't have been here.
Right.
And you could sit in that and hear that, but you decided one day God's voice was louder, that you were no longer going to partner with this lie. And we're blessed that you are here today
Yes.
because you're such a blessing to us, and we get to do
Yes.
life with you and hear your story. And I think of the Bible for, we get this Bible and we get to read it, and we get to read it. We can skip pages if we want because we know their story, and we get to know the beginning and the end real quick.
Right.
But when it's our own story,
Yeah.
we don't know what the end is. We're sometimes stuck in that middle of the pain, and you wonder, is there ever going to be light?
Yeah.
Am I really going to die like this, Lord? Is this really what my life was meant to be? But we are fast forward, and even today, our stories are still unfolding.
Right.
Right.
It's still unfolding. It's
Yeah,
still
it's
good.
getting better and better.
But today, you are here, and you obviously have victory
Yes.
in all your
Yes.
pain and
Yes,
all of the
definitely.
process.
Yes.
And so thank you. We thank you for coming and sharing how good God is, and that there is hope even through all that trauma.
Yeah.
Right.
That
And there
beating
is hope,
down.
and there's also restoration. Restoration that came later. You know, the Lord is so good. He put me on a path to walk with Him, restored me, filled
Amen.
me,
Yeah.
blessed me abundantly, and He restored my marriage.
So when you say restore your marriage, could we go back?
Yeah.
That was
I
my
like
rewind.
rewind.
I wish I had sounds effects. Or like, girl, don't do that. But rewind.
Yes.
What husband? So you've only been married once,
One
and that was
time.
the one that left. So you're now fast forward. You're back with
Fast
him.
forward, yes. So we're going to be celebrating. The Lord restored our marriage, and we're
Wow.
celebrating now. Monday will be 17 years of marriage.
Ooh,
So He realized I was the it thing, right? He woke up, the Lord.
Yeah, the Lord woke him up.
Now get him the shirt that says "I love my wife."
Right, exactly. Act right.
Right.
So yeah,
And
that's
you
a
know,
blessing.
and we
Yeah.
laugh now, but honestly, there's times that you think that you would never laugh. You know, I don't know
Right.
about you, you
Yeah.
know, how we feel like there was times that I never knew I'd be on this side of the chair.
Right.
I thought that my life was always that of wanting to kill myself, be tormented, the thoughts, the hurt, the shame, the guilt. I never thought that I would be on the side that says, you know what? There's victory.
Victory, yeah.
There is victory. And today not that I laugh obviously at the situation, but I'm actually able to laugh with the joy that I do have victory.
Yes.
And those that are listening, you have victory too.
Yes.
Right.
There's nothing impossible. No matter what your story is, you're a very important person, especially when you find yourself and you push past that pain. So again, thank you. That was exciting. That was a good little twist at the end. Back with
know.
their
I
husband, promise keeper.
I might have to put that in there because she's closing
You
up.
know,
Oh, that's a big thing.
that's a huge thing.
Yes.
Yes, that is really victory in the whole process.
Yes.
And that is.
No, I feel like there's part 2 to this, though.
There
I think
is,
so.
yeah.
I feel like
Oh,
we're
yeah.
trying to go, you know.
Yeah, part
you know,
2.
there
We
is
want to hear
definitely-
that.
Yes.
I'm sure. Yeah, they're gonna want to hear like, well, what was that process like?
Yes. Because, promise keeper came to life.
Right.
God's promise is that was your husband and you're going.
Exactly.
And so the blessings on that.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have to have you back to share. So we'll
Yes.
keep our listeners at the edge of their
I
seat and say,
know.
what happened?
Well, like,
what
part
happened
2.
to Andrea? Did she get him too? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. The lightness. That's why I was like, oh, come on. That's why he's like, oh, yeah, I'm
Right.
a bear.
Yes, he behaves now.
He behaves, that's
Yeah,
good.
he's like, oh, I gotta watch out this one. She's
Yeah.
crazy.
But I do want to say before we close here is, thank you for being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Thank you for being honest.
Yes.
Not being afraid to share the ugly in the pain. A lot of times we're told, don't share that. Just share the blessing part.
Right.
Fast forward and nobody needs to hear. But what about those people that feel like they're hearing those voices and they
Right.
don't feel normal?
Yeah.
They're like, it's just me going through this. But there is power. I don't know when people tell me, don't share. You share too much the
pain part.
The pain part. But I don't know. When I read scripture, it says that there is power in our testimony.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that is a part of your testimony,
Right,
the pain.
right,
They
right.
got you in your victory. We can't have victories in pain if there was never no pain.
Right.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you coming on
Yes,
here and
thank
being
you so
vulnerable
much.
and sharing.
Yeah. And something genuine. Thank you for not, because sometimes as we do this, or as you're, I want you to talk about, like you said, don't focus on the pain. Talk about, the victory part only. Like you've come over and they want us to almost be someone that we're not. So thank you for being genuine in your testimony and your story. This is your story.
And we
Thank
are
you.
going to have
Yeah.
part 2 because there's more to
You
her
better
story.
stop.
I mean,
You
yes,
better
there's more
stop.
to her story. It gets crazy.
Yes, it
You
gets
think
even
that was crazy? She goes, look, that's why she's my friend. She's my homegirl.
Yeah.
I got a lot of haters. So my homegirl.
I love it.
Thank you guys again for
Yes.
supporting us, for subscribing, for sharing to other
Yeah,
people
we encourage
that
you to
know.
share. Share this this VIP
Yes.
podcast with others. And as you're watching these episodes, someone may come to mind and think, I want them to hear that. And we would encourage you to do that.
Yes.
There is real victory in our pain, in the process, in the pause, in the
Persecution.
Yeah. So we thank you. Thank you
For tuning in again.
Yes. Don't forget to like
Yes.
on Facebook. All right. Bye, guys.